everyone. Welcome to Frontier Opening Bell. It's the start of the brand new week, 15th of April, the middle of the month. Let me welcome everyone to my guest and colleague in South Africa, Tileto Zwane. A great morning to you. How's it looking like over there with that cup of coffee just near you?
Good morning, Boston. It's looking very cold in Johannesburg this morning. As the World Bank starts their spring meetings today, we are right in the middle of autumn and getting ready for winter.
Oh yeah, we're getting ready for the rainy season here as well. Now, just so I got to nurse a little bit of this. I hope this is not much larger than yours with the winter getting started in South Africa. But of course, whatever you're drinking this morning, tea, coffee, whatever, make it African. That's just the story about it for everyone. Thank you. Let's check through. Of course, everyone remembers we've got a whole lot of holiday to deal with last week, in particular, especially for the Eid al-Fitr Muslim holiday. So across a number of African markets were down to just a few days of trading. As we speak, the Egyptian stock market was opened on Monday last week. So the figure you've seen on the EGX was for last Monday when the EGX started the week and ended on the same day, up by 1.25%. Nigeria's got just two sessions. Friday was positive slightly by 0.71%. The Nairobi stock market was better at 0.4% Friday. Johannesburg stock market eked out just 1 point Friday, while the BRVM was down by about a quarter of percent. The Zimbabwe stock market returned to some positive reading on Friday as well, back above the new 100 level of the index, which has been a rejig because of the introduction of the new currency, the ZiG. Let's move on and check quickly through East Africa. So let's just talk about the World Bank IMF Spring Meetings starting today. Yes, of course, everyone's looking at that. But again, of course, you got to have the heavy lifting of those conversations and release of the various reports by the World Bank and the IMF, the Fiscal Monitor, the World Economic Outlook, and the rest of them, including those that are focused on Africa, coming through from Wednesday. Keep an eye on that. We've got a whole lot on our calendar this week. We're expecting a raft of inflation data. Most of that will be covered from the Southern African regions. Tuleto has about more of that later on the show. In the meantime, the capital markets folks will be meeting together, regulators, professionals, licensed exchanges, and all of that in Douala, the commercial capital of Cameroon, from 23rd to 25th. That's going to be next week. Tulu Energy says Kenya's oil production will now start in 2028 and not around 2026 as earlier scheduled. And the Kenya Port Authority is getting some query because the organization has been accused of diverting cargoes to preferred freight stations within the country. Those are your headlines east of the continent. We've got a whole lot more to deal with in that region, by the way, as we count down also to the African Development Bank annual general meeting, which will be later in about a week or two from now. That's the 27th to the 31st of May in Nairobi, Kenya. That's where everyone will be gathered. We'll be there on the ground here at Frontier Africa Report with our team there in Nairobi. Let me take you to West Africa, and that's with Nigerian breweries, the largest brewer, not just in Nigeria, but the entire West Africa, by the way, says it's going to reorganize. It's going to shut down some plants. That's not some good news, as it were, over the weekend, because the brewer has raised prices at least 3 times since the start of the new year. Now it's looking to reorganize because it's weighing down heavily by the exchange rate. Losses run into hundreds of billions for Nigerian breweries and other consumer goods and companies in Nigeria, such as Cadbury, Nestle Nigeria, and a few others, including international breweries. So it's a whole tough time right now. A couple of workers will be laid off at Nigerian breweries who don't have the full details. A pre-annual meeting briefing by the company is scheduled for Thursday, so we'll bring you those details as soon as we've got them. There was a modest subscription and a flattish yields line for Nigeria's weekly treasury bills auction, which was conducted by the central bank on Friday, just one day left on that market. Trade and investment minister will be holding a closed-door meeting today with the Nigerian exchange. It's going to be the first. So she was appointed as the new minister under the current administration back last year. And Renaissance Capital says Nigeria's naira still have more room to run. The country's currency is still undervalued. Renaissance Capital says the naira currently trading at about 1,100, should be trading around 912 to the US dollar. In the meantime, GITCO, one of the biggest commercial banks, and a few other financial services company within the basket, is looking to do $750 million capital raising via a hybrid offering that will be formally announced at an extraordinary general meeting in the next few weeks. Then, of course, we've got a new we have a new capital mobilization and partnership department at the Africa Finance Corporation, and Usman Abdulrazak has been appointed to head that unit at the Africa Finance Corporation. We'll say congratulations to him. Let's move on to Southern Africa and just do a few touch on there before Tuleto comes in to give us more granular details. Gold hit $2,400 an ounce late last week. Oil prices also jumped as Iran started firing rocket drones at Israel. A lot of that happened. I'm sure you saw all of that in the news over the weekend. Aircraft belonging to the US and the United Kingdom started shooting down many of those drones before they arrived on Israel airspace. The whole messy Middle East crisis is getting a little bit messier. Israel has been asked not to retaliate or fire any retaliatory a strike on Iran directly as we speak. That's according to news sources saying that President Biden, US President, spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu over the weekend and asked him to stay action. Elon Musk Starlink is on track to start operating in Zimbabwe in the third quarter starting July, while the South African Reserve Bank is likely to hold rate decisions all year despite amid inflation worry. The Reserve Bank governor of Zimbabwe says deflation risk from the strong currency, the ZiG, which has just been launched, is real. The ZiG has gained about 0.8%, roughly 1%. It was launched last week, Monday. Looking at the 1 week of the new Zimbabwean currency backed by the dollar, and Nedbank in South Africa says it's going to see more revenue come through from investment banking under the new CEO, Mark Brown. And those are some of the details we got from Southern Africa. Let me pass the baton over to Tuleto in Johannesburg. Tuleto, bring us up to speed.
Good morning. Thank you, Boasen. We touched a little bit already last week on the uncertainty facing South Africa's national elections. The country is heading into uncharted political territory, and we are seeing more and more investors growing increasingly concerned. Opinion polls are once again showing that the ANC has an even lesser chance of gaining more than 50% of the voting at the May 29 elections, and that it is very likely that a coalition government will rule South Africa for the next 5 years. So while this is not the first time South Africa, the ANC has had to be in coalition with other parties, that was more on the local government, municipal scale. On the national government, this is it's a very new terrain for the governing party. With the local municipality, the ANC has previously come together with the economic freedom fighters that are led by Julius Malema. And, it was not successful previously. And they've also tried to, work together with the DA, and they have also failed. So we are all looking to see what's going to happen on May 29. There are some speculation that the ANC would be forced to go into a coalition with the EFF on a national scale, or former President Jacob Zuma's new political party, Umkhonto weSizwe. So all eyes on that, everybody at the edge of their seats. In other news, a popular used car company, We Buy Cars, gained on its trading debut on the JSE last week, marking the start of a potential revival in capital market activity. WB-IMF provides a quick, easy, and trusted solution to selling pre-owned vehicles. And, it marks the second listing in the JSE this year. The JSE has, over the last few years, seen quite a number of companies choosing to delist. So this was very well received news, bringing the total number of companies listed to 283 and the market capitalization to 18.4 trillion rands. In economics news, Seychelles inflation numbers came out last week. Consumer prices in Seychelles fell slightly by 0.17% year on year in March, following a 0.5% downtick in the previous month. This is the 11th consecutive month seeing deflation in the numbers. Also last week, Namibia's inflation numbers came out. They also decelerated slightly. We saw Angola's economy grow 1.4% year on year in the fourth quarter of 2023, after an upwardly revised 1.5 rise in the previous quarter. This marks the 11th successive quarter of economic growth in the country, maintaining a moderate pace helped by a turnaround in the key oil sector. Mozambique also saw its inflation numbers come out last week. Inflation, fell to 3% in March. This is the lowest number since September 2020. So very good news for Mozambique. And also quite surprising, in South Africa, we saw mining production and manufacturing production numbers come out. We know that the country has been under a lot of strain. But some good news is that, South Africa has experienced less and less load shedding over the last month. So we don't know if it is because we are moving forward towards the national elections, or if the country is seeing some progress on that side. We saw annual manufacturing production increase by 9.9% in February. And we also saw manufacturing production also increase by 4.1%. On a monthly level, mining production also grew by 5%. This is more important when the monthly numbers are more important, as they help us put together, or help us estimate rather, what the GDP numbers are going to look like. Manufacturing production fell slightly on the month to month. It fell 0.4% year on year. So this is what we experienced last week. This is the week that was in Southern Africa.
Quite a whole lot. Quite a whole lot on your plate on a daily basis and a weekly basis there in South Africa. But I'm sure this week is very interesting as well. I'm looking at the calendar for the week right now. Can you spend a minute just to run us through what you think the big economic and other news in the business, investment, and finance markets will be for Southern Africa this week, Tilejo?
Yes, similar to last week, there'll also be a flurry of inflation numbers coming out this week. Today alone, we'll see Angola, Botswana, and Eswatini publish their inflation numbers for March. Annual inflation rate in Angola accelerated for a 10th straight month to 20.07% in February, up from 21.99% previously. You see, inflation has been on an increasing trend in the country due to the weaker Kwanza and the removal of fuel subsidies. On Wednesday, attention will shift to South Africa and Namibia. South Africa's inflation numbers for March and the retail sales numbers are coming out. Boasen earlier mentioned that the South African Reserve Bank is now thought that it will keep interest rates steady until next year. Initially, at the beginning of the year, the markets priced the first fall in interest rates in May at the May meeting. And then after the inflation numbers proved sticky downwards, we saw the market price in a drop, or rather a cut in interest rates from July. But now, following the latest numbers, consumer price numbers in the US, there is now speculation that South Africa, the Reserve Bank, will only see a drop in inflation only from next year. Inflation grew to 5.6%. in February, which is way above the 4.5 midpoint preferred by the Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago has historically said that there is no co-movement between US and South African interest rates, but we've seen them actually move in the same direction. And now with the increase in CPI from the latest US numbers, there is speculation that the governor and the Reserve Bank will be forced to keep these rates higher for longer. On Thursday, Congo's interest rate decision will be announced. And of course, on Friday, the IMF will release the latest economic outlook for sub-Saharan African countries.
Yeah, quite a whole lot we've got on this week. I'm sure we'll get into that season, by the way. April, the second quarter into third quarter, of course, a very busy period for economies around the world, and Frontier Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, part of that as well. Thank you so much, Tuleto, for giving us a heads up as to what to expect in Southern Africa for this week. There's just a scratch. You've got to watch the show on a daily basis and then get to see more as we cover the entire continent here on Frontier Opening Bell. Let's talk about Northern Africa. We got news today at about 12:30. Local time in Algiers. The Prime Minister Labero will speak officially at the signing of Algeria as the official host of the 2025 Intra-Africa Trade Fair. That will be in Algiers, that will be attended by top officials of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. Sitting at the head of the table will be officials of Afreximbank, including Kanayo Awani, who's managing director of the IATF and the vice president of the Afreximbank. It's a very big day. That will be live streaming all around the world, and we'll of course have that live stream also here on Frontier Africa Report. You have the Saham Group. Says it's bought Sokjes, the City General Hall of Maroc, for about 745 million euros. That's one of the biggest banking deal so far in 2024. Libya has beaten Nigeria to the second place as Africa's biggest oil producer. Nigeria's oil production or output slumped from 1 to 1.3 million barrels per day in February. That slumped further down by about 2.8% to 1.2 million barrels per day last month, according to the latest report from OPEC. Then you've got Morocco's fresh vegetables exports still surging despite the volume that is down $1.6 billion for 2023 period. Whatever you have, I'm sure you got some vegetables there. We all eat vegetables. Going to check next time whether it's coming from Morocco or whatever. But of course, I'm sure the chunk of that exports go to Europe. Thank you so much. Have a great week ahead. Thank you everyone for watching the show. We'll see you again tomorrow with a fresh package of Frontier Open Bell.